Big Ed and Liz are on the new season of Happily Ever After, and things are really starting to fall apart for them. Guys, you are never going to believe what they just said about each other. So guys, after they got engaged last year, it looked like maybe things were actually going to get a little bit better between Ed and Liz, but after the last episode, I feel like this couldn't be farther from the truth. So they have both said some pretty shocking things about each other, and I couldn't even believe it. I mean, they're supposed to be engaged, but for some of the stuff that they said really made it sound like they can barely even stand each other sometimes. And probably the most insane thing was said in this episode was what Liz admitted about Ed, and she said that Ed could sometimes come across as super insecure and that he could really get defensive and bossy with her sometimes, and even controlling, allegedly. And Liz admitted to this while she was talking to one of her friends, but the thing that surprised me the most was when she said that there was one thing that Ed fully supported her doing, and apparently Ed loves it when Liz goes to the gym, and Liz said that this was the only time that he would leave her alone and not just constantly text her to find out what she was doing and who she was with, and she could literally be away for 3 hours, but as long as it was because she was in the gym, Ed was more than happy to let her be. And the reason for this is honestly unbelievable. So it turns out that Ed might have actually been weight shaming Liz ever since they got back together, and Liz said that Ed would allegedly sometimes go through her old photos when she was a different size, and then he would ask her questions about if she was ever planning to go back to that smaller size, and Liz admitted that, she recently put on a couple of pounds, and it seems like Ed did not like that, and he wasn't afraid to let Liz know, and Liz's friend was obviously horrified. I mean, when she heard about this, and you can't really blame her. Why does Ed think this is an okay thing to say to his fiance or to anyone really? And it's never okay to comment on someone's weight like that. And plus, many people have pointed out that it feels pretty hypocritical of Big Ed, of all people, to be saying things like that. And what makes this whole thing even worse is that Liz admitted to her friend that some of those photos of her looking thinner were from when she and Ed were broken up, and she said that she was not in a good place mentally back then, and so it wouldn't necessarily be healthy for her to try to get back to that. And Ed is her fiance, so you'd think he'd know about this, but apparently he didn't. And he might have known about it, but if he did, then that would make this whole situation and his comments to Liz even worse. So I honestly hope that he had no idea about that part of it, and it still doesn't make what he said okay, but I guess it could be even worse than that. Liz was clearly super upset about the comments, and she said that she found them insulting and that this didn't make her feel pretty at all, which makes a lot of sense because she then went on to say that, she would have hoped that Ed would love her no matter what, and Liz herself has loved Ed at his heaviest and his smallest since she's been with him, and at least that's what she told her friend in the episode, and she'd expect Ed to be the same towards her and love her no matter what, but it does not seem like he sees it the same way. And Liz even confessed that she never thought she would feel so insecure about herself the way she did when he said those comments, and everyone was pretty upset about what Ed did to Liz, but some people on Reddit also pointed out some pretty interesting things about the whole situation, because they said that Liz really should have expected something like this, and that, they couldn't feel sorry for her because she went back to Ed willingly after knowing what he was like. And she released the audio of a phone call between the two of them, and in it, Ed was super hurtful and rude towards her, and still after that, she went back to him and even got engaged to him, and the comments that he made were obviously super hurtful, but it's not like she didn't know what she was getting into with Ed, and he's never exactly been the most sensitive and supportive partner ever. So, something like this, it could have been expected, and I just don't know. Even though this is obviously true, I still feel pretty bad for Liz. And what's weird, though, is, that it seemed to me like even though Liz clearly had a lot of issues with what Ed said, she was also finding excuses for his behavior at the same time. She literally admitted that he was super controlling, and Liz's friend found this super weird, but it seemed like Liz had an explanation for it all. She said that she thought, that Ed was just scared to be loved, and that, he was insecure about that, and because of all his insecurities, he also had all these control issues. And Liz said that she, felt like, I guess she was the one person so far in Ed's life that never needed anything from him, and maybe he just didn't know how to handle that. But another thing that Liz said was actually pretty shocking because, while she was coming up with all these excuses for Ed, she also said that she wasn't sure if she could actually see a future with him because of all this. And it's clear that she doesn't like how controlling Ed can be sometimes, and it seems like if this doesn't get better, she might consider leaving him again. But Liz wasn't the only person who had some pretty interesting things to say, because Ed himself said some stuff about Liz that made me feel like their relationship might genuinely be falling apart, because he said that she could sometimes be a pain in the behind for him, and he also said that she has been one of the hardest things in his life. And I mean, these two are engaged, they shouldn't be having this many problems and calling each other out like this all the time, and their relationship has always been pretty far from perfect, and I just feel like it's only been getting worse. And to be fair, I mean, Ed did also say some pretty nice things about Liz. He called her wonderful too, and he admitted that even though she could sometimes be a pain, he understood where she was coming from, and he said that he couldn't imagine dating himself right now. And Ed also said that he had a lot of his heart invested in Liz, and that, with the big engagement party coming up, he didn't feel like they had anything to prove to anybody, but they still wanted to have the party to show the world how much they loved each other. But they also talked about how they think, they bring the best in each other, which I thought was pretty bizarre considering everything else that they'd just been said. And Liz said that even though Ed sometimes frustrated her and they had issues, she still loved him and was willing to work hard on their relationship. And then Ed said this weird thing. He basically complimented himself for growing as a person, because he has apparently started to shut up and allow Liz to become who she is, which I thought was just a weird way to phrase things, and it honestly came off as kind of patronizing. I mean, I really just don't think these two are ever going to actually work out, and they seem to be falling apart already, and we haven't even seen their engagement party yet. But what do you guys think, and did you watch the latest episode? What did you make of Ed's weird comments? And do you think there's hope for these two as a couple? Guys, let me know in the comments below.